It was a Monday and the rain felt colder than usual. I stood outside the small glass door of the Artem Gallery, my feet soaked through my thin trainers, watching the brake lights of a taxi smear themselves along the wet street. My portfolio grew heavier with each minute, my fingers numb around the slick handle. My hair had curled in the damp, framing my face in a way I'd always hated, and my breath fogged in front of me. I tried to steady it. Inside, the yellow-tinted lights revealed a world to which I had no key: the polished concrete floors, a cluster of sculptures, the ring of champagne glasses. I watched the shadows of sleek-haired critics and curators, some faces familiar from their bylines, others blank. A young woman in a crisp blazer opened the door just enough to slip out. Her umbrella knocked my arm. "You must be Sam," she said, not as a question but as a tired acknowledgement. "Mr. Dorian can see you now." "Just for a minute." Her voice was flat, rehearsed. I walked in, trailing rain onto the mat, ignoring the stares of people whose world I wanted to join. The inner gallery was warm, but my skin buzzed with something close to panic. Mr. Dorian stood before a wall of pale watercolors, glasses perched above the tip of his nose. He was careful never to make eye contact. He thumbed through my portfolio, pausing at a print where I'd coded a tower of neural networks into pastel-colored grids. His lips pressed into a line. "So, Samia Hussein, or do you go by Sam now?" His tone was polite. He pointed at my work with a white finger. "These are unusual." "They're data sculptures," I offered, summoning a practiced confidence I did not feel. "Art generated from urban noise patterns, London at dawn, the river traffic, all reshaped into." He held up a hand. "Sam, these are, look, you're clearly clever, but this isn't what our patrons are looking for." My cheeks burned. "But it's visual and the city is." "Listen," he snapped the folder shut, handing it back. "People want meanings they can feel in paint or sculpture, not," he waved vaguely, "not code." Through the open door behind him, laughter rippled. I realized then no one had ever expected me to succeed tonight. Not my father, who said real men made something you could hold. Not my older sister, who painted in muted oils and called my work novelty charts. Not even my childhood mates from the estate in Streatham, who used to joke that I was training to become a wizard with numbers. I forced my voice not to shake. "Thank you for your time." Outside, the rain came harder, drumming on the stretch of my umbrella. I stood in the threshold for a minute, watching the lights reflected on the slick street. I wondered if this was it, if maybe my family had been right, maybe some dreams are just ridiculous. When I got home, my mum was already asleep in her armchair. I left my shoes at the foot of the bed, shivering, and watched as the city's glow blinked through the foggy window. I promised myself quietly that I would not let this be the end. That week, nobody asked how the gallery went. My sister came over with her two boys and left her canvases everywhere, as if to remind us what real painting looked like. I overheard my father say, "He's got a mind like a computer, our Sam, but no common sense." He didn't know I was listening. For the next 3 years, I worked during the day as a junior analyst in a windowless room at a fintech startup, sorting through spreadsheets and building models nobody cared to understand. At night, I made art. I fed train schedules, crowd movements, snippets of overheard conversation into my scripts, and built generative images that shifted depending on the mood of the city. My laptop grew crowded with files titled things like Heartbeat Polyrhythm V12 and Thames Murmur 3.1. I posted them on forums and then on an underground art blog. Sometimes someone messaged, usually another coder or someone with an interest in urban studies. Once, a woman from Barcelona asked if she could use a piece for her dissertation. It was something, but nothing close to making it. The hardest part wasn't the relentless rejections from galleries or the polite emails most never replied. It was home that scalded. My father would tilt his head at the screen, frown, "Still with your graphs. Why not try for a manager's roles?" At dinner, my sister said brightly, "Some people just don't want to be practical, Dad. The world needs dreamers, right?" She squeezed my arm with a smile that said she felt sorry for me. The estate was full of tiny humiliations. At the market, my old neighbor Mrs. Patel asked, "Still drawing those funny things on the computer?" Or outside the chip shop, a school friend joked, "Sam, when's the exhibition opening at Tate, eh?" I stopped bringing my laptop out. I closed up tighter, but then, one summer, I noticed something changing. A curator from Berlin commented on 3 of my pieces in a row, and then someone from the V&A forwarded one of my algorithmic videos. The London Digital Arts Festival accepted my submission. It was a small event in the lower floor of an industrial space in Hackney, but it was something. For the first time, people stood facing my work and didn't smirk, didn't walk away. They stood there, eyes following the swirl of colours that mapped air pollution data, or the sequence that morphed as more people entered the festival room. I shook hands with strangers. My heart beat out of time the whole night. A woman with a firm handshake asked if I had thought of doing an installation for a public space, something interactive. I hardly slept for 3 days. Bit by bit it changed. I left my analyst job and took a contract with a data visualization startup, helping justice charities make their research more accessible. It was work that mattered. Soon I was invited to show my art in Madrid, then at a conference in Tokyo, then Paris. Still, back at home, nothing changed. When I called to share the Madrid invitation, my father said, "Spain, is it? Don't miss your flight now." My sister posted a new painting of her son by the Thames and got hundreds of likes. Each time I returned to Streatham, people asked polite questions, but I felt the skepticism in their eyes. Mrs. Patel had stopped asking, though. Maybe she thought I had given up. One autumn evening, I received an email from the Southbank Centre. They wanted to commission a public data sculpture, a shifting installation in the Riverside Square, something that would blend code, art and light, and would be visible for miles at night. They sent diagrams, technical specs, a budget that made my eyes widen. The work was complicated and beautiful. Hundreds of rods embedded with LED panels, all arrayed in shifting waves, each one echoing patterns from live data feeds, commuter flows, weather, even tweets. At night it would move and shimmer, painting stories across the square. I spent months in meetings, hands trembling with the weight of it. I hired engineers, teamed with urban designers, fought with contractors over budgets. Every night brought new anxieties. What if it failed? What if the installation shorted out in the rain? What if it was only nonsense? Funny things on the computer, writ large in public. Opening night was set for early spring. They sent out invitations to local councillors, donors, artists, schools, and at my request, a handful of names from my old life. I wasn't sure who would come. The day before the unveiling, I walked along the Thames in the late afternoon chill. Lights flickered on the north bank and boats trailed their wakes across the brown water. Grey clouds pressed low, uneasily familiar. I called my mum. "The opening's tomorrow at 6, I said. "There'll be talks. Maybe some food." She sounded uncertain. "Dad's got work until 5, love." "Maybe he could come after," I offered, surprised how badly I wanted them to say yes. She hesitated. "We'll see." "Your sister's bringing the boys." I spent the rest of the night running diagnostics, checking cables, going over the minutes for my speech. My nerves felt like live wires. The next day dawned cold and bright. White tents were set up beside the installation, under banners that read "Urban Echoes, Data in Motion." I stood in a black suit, shoes polished for the first time in years, watching as the first guests wandered in. Advisors from the commissioning agency, the festival's director, a clutch of students with clipboards, and then, unmistakably, my family. My dad wore the old brown coat he saved for weddings and funerals. My mum hovered at his side, biting her lip, and my sister herded her boys. I felt an odd flicker somewhere between dread and gratitude. They did not approach me right away. Instead, they wandered the edge of the cordon, watching as the light rods flickered gently in the dusk, shifting colors in response to the building traffic outside Waterloo Station. The data was real-time, my city, their city, made visible in color and rhythm. This was it, I thought, the moment I had been promised nothing for and yet still found myself standing in. People gathered. A microphone appeared in my hand. The festival director made polite introductions, used the phrase "redefining art in the capital." I spoke about how cities breathe, how data is poetry, how I wanted to build a way for people to see their own stories written in light. I thought my dad stared through me. My sister leaned down to quiet her youngest as I finished, and polite applause rippled through the crowd. Then, as the clock struck 6, the sculpture came to life. Waves of green and blue raced along the rods, real-time streams showing how many people crossed each bridge that hour. The colors shifted as the air changed, as text from passing social media posts bled into the algorithms. The entire South Bank shimmered and pulsed. People gasped, some taking photos, others just standing perfect still. I turned, looking for my family. My sister was staring, mouth slightly open. My nephews pointed, shouting, "Mum." Look, it's a rainbow. My mum's hands were clasped at her chest. My dad, it was his face that stopped me. He stood at the edge, staring at the sculpture as if daring it to make sense. Beside him, Mrs. Patel crowded closer, clutching her shopping. I watched recognition dawn on both their faces as my name appeared in simple script, rolling across a display, a small part of the installation built to reflect public data, crediting the artist in real time. My father's gaze flickered from the art to me. I swear he looked smaller than I remembered. Across the crowd, I heard a man say, "You see that? That's Samia Hussein's. Found a way to make London talk, they say." Another nodded sagely, suddenly aware. After the crowd laughed at some shared joke about the rush hour data, my sister came over. She hugged me, something she had not done since we were children. "Sam," she whispered, "it's beautiful, they all think so." My mum dabbed at her eyes. "I could never have imagined this, love." My dad approached, hesitant. I braced myself. He nodded to the sculpture, searching for words. "You built all that with computers." The relief in me threatened to overwhelm. "Yeah, Dad." "I did." He looked out at the lights, hands bunched in the pockets of his coat. "Never thought I'd see anything like it, not from our block. They all asked, how you learned to do it." I watched as an old friend from school sidled close, his voice awed. "Sam, mate, this is yours, bloody hell, everyone's talking about it already." A feeling flooded through me, a sense of soft release, as if something had finally unclenched in my chest. Later that night, after most had gone home, I walked back to Streatham with my family. My dad kept glancing at me as if seeing me anew. "You always were clever," he said once quietly. I laughed, shaky but real. "Do you remember when you said I'd be a wizard with numbers?" He chuckled. Maybe I wasn't wrong. When we reached home, my nephews tumbled in the door, reenacting the sculpture with outstretched arms. My sister made us tea, and my mum talked about the lights, needing to fill the silence with wonder to make it real. As the house quieted, my dad lingered in the kitchen. He fixed me with a look, the same one I remembered from years before, strong, wary, but now touched with something warmer. "Proud of you, Sam," he said, not loudly, proper proud. Even if I didn't understand it before. I nodded, unable to summon words. That night, as I lay in my old bedroom, surrounded by the sounds of the street outside, the distant wail of sirens, a train rumbling towards Victoria, laughter spilling from flats, I felt the city and its stories hum through me. I thought about the gallery door in the rain, about the long nights alone, about the dull ache of being told my dream was ridiculous. I remembered each rejection, each sideways glance, each laugh. Now I knew I had made it. I had brought something unreal, something beautiful, right into the heart of my family's world. I had come home not as someone seeking permission, but as someone finally seen. The rain began again in the dark, soft and steady on the glass, and I slept, the city's light glowing quietly behind my eyelids.